guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with my December wrap-up, the last wrap-up of 2020. I read 34 books this month. I was on winter break for 2 weeks, and I read a lot of audiobooks. I had the Binging Bridgerton readathon that I did with some friends on BookTube and Bookstagram, so I read a lot of the Bridgerton series, and just a lot in general. I did a Christmas romance reading vlog. If I have a vlog associated with any of these books, they'll be linked down below, but I do have one book to talk about that was not on my November wrap-up because I finished it the last day of November, and I'm going to talk about it now, and that is Layla by Colleen Hoover. This one is her newest release, and it is about a ghost, basically. This guy is at this inn with his wife, and there's a ghost there, and that's all I want to say. I have an entire reading vlog about it. I think I gave this 3.5 stars. I wanted more. I thought that the ending was very predictable. The part I liked about it most was the romance. I'm a romance reader. I cling to any romance in the novel, and I really liked the romance in here, but other than that, it wasn't too scary or exciting or twisty like Colleen Hoover's known for. She's known for her crazy twists. It wasn't that crazy to me. I saw it coming, and so then we had this whole like long drawn out wrap up that I was bored with because I knew it was happening. So that's Layla. That was my last book of November, so I'll go ahead and now get into the books I read in December. The first book I read was for my Christmas romance reading vlog, and that is Wrapped by Rebecca Weatherspoon. This is book 3.5 in her Fit series. I've not read the rest of the books, but our main character owns a pastry shop, and she is on a dating app, meets this guy on the dating app that works where she used to work, so she like kind of knows him, and he ends up saying yes to a date, and they flirt back and forth, and he shows up at her work a couple times with his friend to buy some pastries, and it was so adorable. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked their communication and how awkward they felt, because online dating's awkward, and they're like, we kind of know each other in real life, but now we're talking on this app, and I don't know where our relationship's gonna go. They don't know if they're being flirty or creepy, and so they talk about that a lot too. It was just adorable, and if you like romances that have a lot of communication through text message and phone calls, you would really enjoy this one. It's just a really fun dating app kind of romance, and I really enjoyed it. I will say, and I did not enjoy how our main character kind of drew away from our hero, but other than that, I enjoyed the book. Then from the publisher, I was sent A Warm Heart in Winter by J.R. Ward. This one is book 18.5, so it is not really following the main plot line of the Black Dagger Brotherhood books, but it's about all the characters in between books, so it's just like a treat for the readers, and that's how I really viewed this book. I gave it 4 stars because it wasn't important in the grand scheme of things, but this is Blay and Quinn's book. It really broke my heart because Quinn is really struggling with his brother who's staying at the compound with them, and things that happened with him in previous books, and Blay and Quinn never had a mating ceremony, so it was going through that, and we had a lot of Zadis in here because Zadis really understands being really broken and hurt by something, and that's what Quinn is going through. I enjoyed it just because it was something for the fans, and it just made my heart all warm and fuzzy inside. There is a huge snowstorm that they have to deal with, and I liked it. There's nothing really important about this book in the grand scheme of the plot of the whole series, but it was just a fun way to see the characters again and see them interact, and seeing Blay and Quinn because we haven't seen them in a while, so I really enjoyed this one. Then we have Romantic Mr Bridgeton by Julia Quinn. This is book 4 in the Bridgerton series. I actually have a whole video reviewing the book series, which I'll link down below, and then I do have my video reviewing the entire Bridgerton series Netflix show, which I'll also link down below because Bridgerton's on Netflix. If you didn't know, it was based on this book series, and so I did the Binging Bridgerton with my friends, like I said, and read Colin and Penelope's book. This one I had been dying and waiting for. Unfortunately, I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. We didn't get as much of Colin's really fun, carefree personality. He is a little bit older. We do skip quite a few years. I don't remember how many years passed, but he's in his 30s now, and Penelope is like late 20s, and so they're finally getting together. It's a friends to lovers romance. Penelope and Colin have been friends forever, and Penelope's kind of had a crush on Colin, and it's finally their time to get together. A lot of this book centers around who Lady Whistledown is because Lady Danbury makes this bet saying whoever gets it will get some money, and they're trying to track down who she is, and I enjoyed this one. I was annoyed with Colin's insecurity with himself near the end over something that I don't want to say because it's a bit of a spoiler, but overall I still really enjoy this series. I still gave it 4 stars. It just didn't live up to the expectations I had for Colin and Penelope. Then I listened to an audio for my Christmas romance reading vlog, A Mackenzie Clan Christmas. I actually listened to the 2 separate ones because this has 2 novellas. It has a Mackenzie Yuletide and a Mackenzie Clan Gathering, and I listened to those 2 separately, but they're both in here, so I just counted it as one book. And this is a novella compilation for the Mackenzie McBride series by Jennifer Ashley, so we do get a lot of Ian. The Madness Over Ian Mackenzie is one of my favorite historical romances of all time. The series is pretty long. These are just 2 Christmas novellas. My favorite was the second one because we had a lot more of Ian, but they're just really fun with the family. So if you want more seeing the family, the first one was okay. There was like a ghost that they were trying to catch, but the second one, there was a missing necklace and someone had broken into the house. It really much more centers around Ian and Beth, so I enjoyed it a lot. So overall, I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Christmas Backup Plan by Lori Wilde. This one I was not a fan of. I gave 2 stars. Our main character is a wedding planner and she has to go drive to this wedding. So this guy ends up driving her. They've known each other forever. All of their siblings are actually married to each other and they're the last ones left, and they're like, we hate each other, and her sisters are like, you'll know, you'll hear a humming in your head when you kiss and you'll know. And so they have to spend a night together because the roads get bad. They have to stay at an inn, and of course they end up kissing and she hears the hum and she's like, oh, I don't hear it, he's not for me, and they end up falling for each other. But this one just like wasn't good. He is dealing with a lot of mental health issues. She tries to diagnose him and I was not a fan of that, and he's like, oh, I didn't know that. And I'm like, you don't really know each other. Like, they don't spend any time together. They just know each other because of their families. And so I wasn't a fan of that. There were a lot of exclamation points in the writing, which I find very juvenile, and I did not like that writing style at all. So this one wasn't good. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I'm surprised because Lori Wilde's such a staple romance writer, so I don't know if it's this one that was just very cheesy or if that's just her brand. I don't know. Then I listened to The Games We Play by Alexandra Warren, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Our main characters, they've known each other for a while, and he is actually her brother's best friend, and so he's back in town and helping his mom fix up her house, and they end up having a romance. I do think that in the beginning it wasn't as like high stakes, the fact that they were kind of forbidden, because it is best friend's little sister that our hero's dating, but then it kind of became a big plot line near the end, and I don't know if I saw really the connection between them, but I still really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It was a fun romance. Then I ended up picking up the 12 Days of Christmas by Rilsey Adams. This one I gave 3 stars. I didn't really like how the plot was structured. So our main characters were best friends and they kind of hooked up in the past, and it wasn't really clear what their past was, and they kind of did the thing where they revealed it throughout the book, but then I was so confused. I was like, was it one time? Was it ongoing? I don't know. But the guy moved away for a while and now he's back and he's determined to show her that it can work. So he plans these like 12 dates of Christmas, and it was just okay. I was more confused with the plot structure. Because of that, I didn't really understand their complexity of their relationship and how they had reservations about getting together again because of their past. So I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. It was pretty short and quick, but something that I wasn't as in love as I normally am with Rilsey Adams books. Then I read Fire Night by Penelope Douglas. This is a novella that she published, and it is kind of Christmas-y and a lot of shenanigans happen. It's 4.5 in the Devil's Night series, so there's a lot with the characters and you really have to read the whole series, but you get little snippets of all the couples together. We get points of view of all 4 of the guys, and I really enjoyed it. You got to see a lot of their kids, and there was a little bit of a plot that happened with a couple of the specific kids that I'm really interested in, to see if Penelope Douglas is going to actually develop one of the kids' stories. I don't know if she's actually announced if she is or not, but I really enjoy this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Captain's Midwinter Bride by Liana De La Rosa, and this one I read because Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life read it and raved about it, so I picked it up. It is a marriage in trouble story, kind of. Our protagonist, he is a ship captain and he's finally retired, so he's back home and he doesn't really know his kids or his wife, and his daughter's getting married, and he kind of falls in love with his wife, and I really enjoyed this one. I really loved how they got to know each other again, and he kind of showed his daughter really that he cared about her too, so I would definitely recommend this one. 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read To Sir Philip with Love by Julia Quinn. This is book 5 in the Bridgerton series, and this is Eloise's story, and I absolutely love this one. This is my second favorite of the series, and people hate this one. It's the least rated book on Goodreads, as it has an average of like a 3.8, and out of the whole series, this is the lowest rated, which is shocking because this one was so good. It starts off as an epistolary romance, so Eloise writes to Philip when Philip's wife dies. There's trigger warnings for suicide in the beginning. It's very dark in here. Also trigger warnings for child abuse as well, because that's mentioned in here. But in this one, Eloise starts writing to Sir Philip once his wife dies because it was her cousin, and then they start writing more, and Philip's like, why don't you marry me? Because it's been a couple of years, he has kids, and he needs a wife. And so Eloise really doesn't know. Penelope gets married though, and Penelope and Eloise were supposed to be spinsters together. So Eloise ends up going off to Sir Philip's house and deciding if she wants to marry him or not. And so there's a lot of the kids in here. We get Philip, who is still very just grief-stricken over losing his wife, and he still has some trauma from that, and it was just really amazing. I loved Philip so much. When he showed up in the show, I freaked out because he doesn't show up until book 5, but in the show he's in season 1, and I was very excited. So I loved this one. Then I read In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. This was the Ravished by Romance pick for December, which is the book club I run with Lacey from Lacey Book Lovers. This one is kind of like Groundhog's Day. Our main character relives Christmas over and over again, and she always goes to this cabin with her parents and her parents' best friends and these people that she's pretty much grown up with, and she's in love with one of the boys that she's grown up with, and it ends up being their romance. And it was good until the end. I gave it 3.5 stars. I was just really annoyed with the hero and how mad he got at the end about something, which I don't think he should have gotten mad about, and he kind of ruined Christmas, which made me mad. But she did relive the day a couple times, but I thought the side characters were really fun. This is a lot better than the other releases Christina Lauren's had. Those I gave like 3 or 2 stars. This one's getting better, but it wasn't the best, but it was still a really cute holiday romance. Then I listened to Inevitable Seductions by Christina C. Jones. This is book 2 in the Inevitable series. I loved Inevitable Conclusions. This one though is Nubia and Stefan's story, and I will say in the beginning I felt like the plot was a little slow. So Stefan and Nubia meet. She's very hesitant to start a relationship with him, and then something does happen later on that really affects their relationship, and so I did feel like we were waiting for that to happen, but it was a really cute romance. I did end up giving this more 3.5 stars, but I rounded it up to 4. There is trigger warning for Cancer in here, so make sure you're aware of that going in, but I love Christina C. Jones, so I'm so happy that I read another one of her books. Then I read Dragonbound by Thea Harrison. I read this for a reading vlog I did where my followers recommended their favorite fantasy romances. This one, our main character, she ends up stealing something from this dragon, and he is a shifter, but he is like this huge figure in their society. He's super powerful, and she is blackmailed into stealing from him, and she knows he's gonna come after her. So then she goes on the run, goes into like this place where she knows he's not allowed. He comes after her anyways, and they end up falling in love. I really like this, but I do think that the ending really slowed down. I think I give this 3.5 stars because the beginning was just so fast-paced and go-go, and it was great, and it was great chemistry, and then the last like 150 pages, she's just like sitting in his hotel place where he lives, and I'm just like, what happened to all the craziness that was happening in the beginning? I really need that throughout the whole book, or at least broken up and not just like half and half. So I really enjoyed this, but I wanted more from the ending. Then I read You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I listened to the audiobook of this, and this is about our main character who needs a scholarship to get into the school she really wants to go to for music because she didn't get the scholarship that she applied for. The prom king and queen winner at their school actually gets a scholarship, so she decides to run, and she's not really one of the popular people, but her friends all try to help her, and they really look at how people take it really seriously. Are they wanting it for the scholarship or for the popularity? And one of her old friends is running for king, and they kind of reconnect after what had happened to them to break up their friendship, but she is crushing on a new girl in school, and the girl she's crushing on is pretty quirky, and she doesn't know if she wants to go public with her crush on her, or when things progress, does she let people know? Is her attempt at the crown for prom queen more important? And so I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed our main character trying to figure out how to be prom queen, why she was wanting it, how she was viewing herself with other people. I really enjoyed this. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read Legendborn by Tracy Dion. This one was absolutely fabulous. I did film my top YA of 2020, which is going to come out I think tomorrow. This one's in it, and so is You Should See Me in a Crown. This one is inspired by the Arthurian legend, and so our main character ends up getting to a college program while she's still in high school, so her and her best friend go, and she kind of stumbles upon the secret magic society, and what they're using reminds her of something that happened with her mother's death, so now she thinks that it's connected to her mom, mom's death, trigger warnings for grief and loss of a loved one, because she does grieve a lot for her mother throughout this book, and it's really connected to losing her mother, what she goes through. And so she ends up pledging and competing to be these people to support these Arthurian legend descendants, and it was amazing. The ending was nuts. Oh my gosh, I really loved the magic system in here. I really loved how the relationships of all the people were and how they were competing, and how there's this very long history of the society. I could not recommend this enough. It was really long, but I'm dying for book 2 already, especially after that ending. Then I read When He Was Wicked by Julia Quinn. This is book 6 in the Bridgerton series, and my absolute favorite. This is Francesca's story. She's a widow. We get in the prologue when she's happily married, and her husband's cousin slash best friend is there too, and he's actually been in love with Francesca since he met her right before their wedding. He's never done anything about it. He knows she can never be his, and then Francesca's husband passes away. Francesca is devastated. Michael is devastated, and he ends up going away for a few years, and then he comes back and they reconnect as friends. Francesca's never seen him as more because she was happily married, and now it's their reconnection and they start to like each other. There's a lot of heat between them. There's a lot of funny moments in here, and it's very angsty because Michael doesn't want to have his best friend's wife. He's like, that's wrong, and she doesn't want to betray her husband, and she doesn't know if she can move on, but she wants a family, and that's really driving her to move on. So I loved this. My favorite of the series, 5 out of 5 stars. Then I picked up The Leopard King by Anna Guire for that fantasy romance vlog. This one, it's more paranormal. Our characters are shifters, and there's a weird society that they live in that wasn't really explained. We're just jumped into the plot. Our main character, she has not shifted yet. She doesn't know if she ever will. She's far past the time when people typically shift for the first time, and she ends up going after their basically king of their society. He's become a recluse because he lost his wife tragically, and so he's hiding out. She ends up to go find him, and she says, if I shift, we'll marry, which I don't even know why that happened, but they end up getting attacked, and it goes from there. And I think that the writing was weird because a lot of the action didn't happen on page. It was described as having happened, but like we didn't get to be there with them, which I really didn't like. If you're gonna have an action scene, take us to it and show us. And a lot of the characters' decisions didn't really make sense. I really still don't understand the hierarchy of anything. There's people in here from other places, and someone was killed, and I still don't understand who killed them or why, and I don't know if that's explained later, but there was just a lot left hanging in here and not really built well, and so I gave this one a 2 out of 5 stars. Then I started a video where I read my Instagram followers' favorite romances of 2020. I'll link that down below. The first one I read was Fable by Adrienne Young. Technically this isn't fully a romance, but there is a romance at the end, and I loved this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Our main character was abandoned by her father after her mother passed away, and so she is a dredger. She works on this island where she dives for things, which I thought was really cool, how she had that capacity, like the lung capacity to dive for things, and something happens where she has to run away, and she ends up stowing away on the ship. She convinces the people on the ship to take her, and the people on the ship kind of have secrets, and she's trying to track down her father, who's this notorious pirate. No one knows he's her father, and then she does kind of have a romance with someone on the ship, which I really loved. I loved everything about this. I love ship stories. I love pirate stories. So this one, the atmosphere was amazing. We had some crazy things happen at the end. It ends on a cliffhanger. I requested the arc of the next book, and I got denied, so I have to wait until March until it comes out. It's fine, but I really enjoyed the story. Next I listened to on audio was Tempest by Beverly Jenkins. This one, our main character is a mail order bride. She is the sister of the character in book 2 and the niece of the character in book 1, and she ends up accidentally shooting her betrothed when she arrives because her and her wagon driver are attacked, so she like wards them off with her gun, and then more people come and she thinks it's more vigilantes trying to steal from her, so she shoots at them, and it's actually her betrothed who's a doctor, and she shoots him, but he's fine. And the romance goes from there. I think I really love the romance in the beginning and like that fun meet cute, but like a lot of Beverly Jenkins books, they got together fairly quickly, and then the rest of the book was very slow until the end, and it was more about our main character really making her place in their town and showing people that she is a woman, but she doesn't need her man to be able to like tell her where she can spend her money, and so she has a very different outlook on what it's like to be a woman in society than everybody else in the town, so she's trying to break those barriers, and it was fine. I really liked his sister, who gets the next book in the series, which is coming out in 2021, so I'm very excited for that, but I gave this 4 stars, more like 3.5, because I really enjoyed the beginning, but then it kind of dragged a little bit, and the romance developed a little too quickly for me, but other than that, I really love Beverly Jenkins. I love her feisty heroines, so this was still fun. Then I picked up the novella The Naughty List by Ella Mae McGregor. This is just a quick Santa romance, and it was very steamy, very short. Our main character, I think she's divorced or trying to get divorced, and she's at Christmas alone because her husband took the kids, and Santa comes in and is super attracted to her, and he is not like an old man. He is kind of younger, but I think he still has like the beard and stuff, and one of the biggest complaints is that there's a lot of consent in here. He constantly asks her if it's okay. I didn't have a problem with that, but it was a lot of fun. It was short. I gave it 4 stars. I'm glad I read it. If you want a really fun, quick, steamy Santa novella, read this one. Then I read Only When It's Us by Chloe Leese. I listened to this on audio. This one's new adult, so our characters are in college. Our female main character is a soccer player, and she is dealing with her mother who has cancer, so trigger warnings for cancer, but she ends up sitting next to this guy in class that she's really having a hard time with because the professor's not really accommodating. Normally athletes like get a lot of help from the professor and a lot of leeway if they have to miss class for stuff, but the professor isn't that helpful, and she's very scared of going up and talking to him, and the professor says, here, this guy in the front row, he'll help you get notes. She asks him for the notes, he ignores her. He's deaf, and so she gets really angry because she doesn't know that he's deaf, and then they end up talking, and she realizes her misconception of him, and it's their romance. I didn't like their meet cute. I didn't like how angry she got because he is deaf. Like, that's super rude that she got really angry, but they end up having this really cute relationship because they're kind of forced to work together on the school project. He used to be a soccer player, but because he got sick and he lost his hearing, he isn't anymore, so he's really trying to figure out life not having his hearing and feeling like he can't risk trying to figure out ways to get it back with like cochlear implants and different surgeries and stuff, and so that's a lot of a part of his character. He has a really huge family, which I really loved. This one was pretty good. I gave it 4 to 5 stars. It is a new adult romance, which aren't my favorite, but I still really enjoyed this one, and I loved the second one, which is the last book I read in December. One of my favorite books of all time, but this one was still fun. Then I read The Matriarch by Annabelle McInnes, and this one, unfortunately, I think I gave 2 out of 5 stars. It is a society of women. It's kind of like Mad Max. There's no water. There's a lot of like different groups of people who are all against each other and they're at war with each other, and her group of women, our main character, is like the leader of them, and they're fighting this other group, but when they're fighting the other group, the leader of that group's son ends up like decapitating him and becoming the leader, and they end up working together, but I didn't like this. There was not a lot of plot in here, and then things would happen, and I was just very confused about why they were happening and who was bad and who was good and how they got places, and it was just really missing the mark for me. I ended up really just skimming through the rest of the end because I was like, I really don't care. The romance really developed way too quickly. It was very insta-lovey. I didn't really get it, and I just thought it was okay. Not that great. Then I listened to the audiobook of Look the Part by Julie Ann. This one was adorable. Trigger warning for loss of a loved one because he was driving the car and his wife died in a car accident, and so he feels so guilty over what happened, and also trigger warnings for talks of alcoholism and substance abuse. But in this one, he is raising his son, and he is a lawyer, and he's subletting the office in his building, and this woman ends up renting it, and she's a music therapist, and he didn't realize there'd be music, and so he can't concentrate. He threatens to kick her out, and that's really the running joke throughout this whole thing, is that he wants to kick her out, but he never actually does. And his son is autistic and ends up learning to play the guitar with her, and his son is really into her and really enjoys spending time with her, so he is hesitant to kick her out, and they end up spending more time together and falling in love. It was so good. There is a trope in here that I usually don't like that I absolutely loved in here because I thought it was very realistic and helped move their relationship along instead of causing more drama in their relationship. But it was so good. I really loved his son. I really loved how close that she got with his son and how he didn't think he was worthy of being in love again, and he felt guilty for what happened, and especially at the end, I really loved just the emotions that he went through in the end and had to explore and develop. So I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Then I listened to the audiobook of Auntie Up by Christina C. Jones. This one is a poker romance, which was really good. Our main character is a waitress, and she plays poker on the side to try to help her family and get money, and she's raising money to enter this huge poker championship. And she does have an ex who is pretty dangerous, and her brother gets into some sticky situations, and so those are little side plots that happen. She meets a guy, has a one-night stand with him, and then realizes he is actually the owner of the casino, and so their relationship develops, and I really like this. It dealt with a lot more darker themes than I'm used to in Christina C. Jones books, because she deals with really dangerous people, and her brother gets into a lot of trouble and she has to help him, and there's money problems dealing with that, and things get dangerous. But I really enjoyed this. I wasn't sure how I felt about our hero, especially with how he treats her after their one night stand together, but I really enjoyed this. I really liked their push and pull, because he's super rich and she's not, and he owns a casino and she works for it, but it was good. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Let Me Please You by Alexandria House. This is a novella in the McLean Brothers series, which I just read book 1. I finished it today actually, but this, I hadn't read any of the other series when I read this, and it is a bodyguard romance. So our main character is the sister of all the main characters in the actual series, and they are all famous, and so she does a lot of babysitting for her nephew, and so she needs a bodyguard, and she ends up falling for the bodyguard, and I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I'm not sure I loved how the ending progressed, because like time jumped a lot, because it is a novella, so they had to skip through little things that I wish were more fleshed out. But I really liked how she really toyed with him, because he didn't want to be with her because it's work and he's jeopardizing his job, and he loves his job, and he's like, I can't betray my boss like that. But it was really good. If you want a bodyguard romance, I definitely recommend picking this one up. Then I read A Devil in Winter by Lisa Kleypas. This is a marriage of convenience. We have a villain hero. Sebastian, I guess, is the villain of the previous book. I'm gonna read it, I promise. I didn't read it before this one though, so I do feel like we missed out on Sebastian's character development, because we got it in the previous book, so that was my bad. I understand. But they end up getting married in the beginning. They run off to Scotland to elope, which I guess is a thing back then. You just go to Scotland to elope. And she needs to get married because she doesn't want to marry someone because of her relatives are trying to marry her off because she's very wealthy, and he needs money, and that's why he kidnapped someone in the previous book. So she proposes marriage, they get married, and it's really a lot of back and forth between them, because he's a rake and she's like, I bet you can't go without getting something for 3 months, and he's like, I'll show you. And there's a lot of chemistry between them, and so he ends up trying to be celibate for 3 months, and she toys with him, and it's so much fun. I really enjoyed it. There's a lot also dealing with her relatives and how nasty they are, and they really still want her money, and it's good. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I really love this one. Then I finally listened to the audiobook of Rafe by Rebecca Weatherspoon. This is book 1 in the series. I've already read Zenny, and Rafe is a male nanny, and our main character is a single mother of 2, and she is a surgeon, which is really cool, and her nanny quits on her, and so she needs someone immediately, and so Rafe is there, and he ends up working for her and living with her, and him and her daughters click like that. He is just an amazing nanny, and I really like this because they had so much honest communication. Within the first few days, I think, he was like, you know what? I really like you, like I'm really attracted to you. So he did something about his attraction and let her know, and really put the ball in her court, which I really liked. So much open communication in here. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was so fun. I loved how he was the nanny and how he was so into her children, and I really enjoyed this. He also had a really good family as well, and I love that aspect. So if you want just a great, fun, male nanny romance, read this. Then I read Bitter Heat by Mia Knight. This is book 1 in the series, and it is a dark romance because of the consent, non-consent happening with our main characters. So they were married and got a divorce, and her family really hated him, and she got married to him anyways, and then she was kind of convinced by her father to divorce him, so she did, and now she is at his mother's cabin, and his mother has a stroke or a heart attack. I think she had a heart attack, and so she's in the hospital. He shows up, and they end up toying with each other, and she ends up having to get married to him again for a specific reason, and it was good. I am annoyed that it's 2 books. I feel like it definitely could have been condensed into 1. I think things were drawn out, and then we had a twist at the end that I wish was explained more, because there was like this big secret he had, and then it was dropped, and then the book ended, and I was like, why did we wait all book for this to have to wait for book 2, which is annoying, and book 2 is not even out yet. And the author's note even says she realized like 70% in she was going to make it 2 books. It was supposed to be 1, so I wish this was 1 book. That's my only gripe for this, but there's a lot of intense heat and passion and hatred between them, because there's all these other elements affecting their relationship and whether they should be together or not. If all those were gone, they'd be happily together, but she now hates him for it, and so they have a lot of tension between them, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read book 7 in the Bridgerton series, and that is It's in His Kiss by Julia Quinn. This one is Hyacinth's story, and it was so good. Lady Danbury is in here a lot, and she's one of my favorite characters of the show in the series. Hyacinth is the youngest daughter, and she has quite the personality, and Gareth is Lady Danbury's grandson, I think, or nephew. I forget which one it is. He's related to Lady Danbury, and he inherits this notebook from a great grandmother of his, and it's all written in Italian, and he really doesn't get along with his dad for a specific reason, and so he really wants to translate the diary to see what it's about. Hyacinth knows Italian, so they end up trying to translate this diary together and go on a treasure hunt together, and it's great. I love their romance. They actually fall in love before deciding to be together. A lot of the books in this series were all marriage of conveniences and then they fall in love, but the later books are not that, which I really appreciated because it happened so much in the beginning of the series. But the relationship was just so fun. There's a lot of intrigue too because they're trying to figure out where this treasure is and are they going to fall in love, and they're always put together because of Lady Danbury, and I love this one. 5 out of 5 stars. Then I finally read Indigo by Beverly Jenkins, and I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. There are a couple things that I didn't love about it, but I adored everything else about it. So our main character, Hester, works for the Underground Railroad, and Galen is a notorious worker for the Underground Railroad. He is known as Black Daniel. Everybody's after him, and he shows up at her door beat up, and he needs to be nursed back to health, and she hides him and helps him get better. And I will say I could just read the first 100 pages of this book as a full-blown novel. Their tension and their pining was amazing. Hester helps him get better, but there's a little bit of tension and hatred between them because he doesn't want help, and there's just like moments where they like notice things about each other, and they catch each other in the bathtub on accident, or they help each other like get changed, like she's helping him because she's nursing him back to health, and it was so good. I will say the middle kind of dragged along a little bit. I would have loved a lot more of that like Underground Railroad aspect of it because we get it in the beginning and then we don't really get more until the end where it's pretty crazy, and the middle is very slow, so I would have loved more of that action in the middle than what we got. But I really loved this. I really loved how Galen was just like unapologetically in love with Hester by halfway through the book, and he was like, you're gonna be mine. I really loved that. This was so good. Hester's such a strong character. The romance was just to die for. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I had a really good end of the year because I think all of these rest are 5 out of 5 stars. The next one was Once More My Darling Rogue by Lorraine Heath. I read this because of Lisa. This is an amnesia romance, so I had to read it. This one, our main characters absolutely hate each other. The guy, he is new money and she's old money, and people don't respect him for his new money, and so she is end up found in the Thames. Someone attacked her. She has no memory. He takes her home, nurses her back to health, and tells her that she is his maid because he wants to put her in her place. They hate each other, and he ends up falling for her, and she's like, no, this doesn't feel natural. I feel like I should be the one being waited on, not waiting on other people. But she's like, okay, I guess I'll learn, and she like dives headfirst into being a maid for him, and they dance around each other, start falling for each other, but little does she know they actually hate each other and he's lying to her. Okay, so my camera died and I had to go charge it for a little bit. I know I have to get an extra battery. I don't have one. I need to do that, but I don't even remember where I was when I was talking about this. There's a mystery going on between why she was in the Thames in the first place, so we can't return her to her family because he doesn't know who was responsible for trying to kill her, and it was just fabulous. I love a good amnesia romance. Our Ravaged by Romance pick for January with my book club is a contemporary amnesia romance, so check out my Instagram for our book club down below if you want to join. But I love this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Then the next one I read is the last Bridgerton book, and that is On the Way to the Wedding by Julia Quinn. This is Gregory's book. He was the one that I was least excited for. He was the one I felt like we knew the least about. I love this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Gregory wants love. He's seen all of his siblings fall in love. He believes in love. He wants to love. So he sees Hermione for the first time and he's like, that's it. She's the one. I love her. Little does he know, he's actually going to fall for Hermione's best friend, Lucy, who is going to help him get Hermione, because Hermione's in love with someone below her social status, and Lucy doesn't think she'll be enjoying that kind of life, and so Lucy and Gregory work to get Hermione to fall for him. That doesn't happen, and the beginning also has Gregory trying to break up a wedding, and then it flashes back to the past where he starts falling for Lucy, so we don't know whose wedding it is or why, but this was great. I really love the romance. I really loved how many Bridgertons we get in here. We get so much of Kate in here. We get a ton of Colin. Daphne shows up. Hyacinth is amazing at the end. I just love the whole family dynamic of the series. I really love this book as an ending for the series. Gregory's was surprisingly really good. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Then I listened to the audio of Just Like Heaven by Julia Quinn because Lisa told me to, because of the hero. A quote from the Bridgerton show, I Burn For You, which Simon says, is from this book. It's taken from the Smythe-Smiths Quartet. This is the spin-off series to the Bridgerton series, and so the Smythe-Smiths are mentioned in book 7, and they have this annual musical they put on that's horrible, and our main character is actually part of the Smythe-Smiths, and she's part of that musical. She falls for a really close friend who is actually her older brother's best friend. This is a nursing back to health friends to romance, and so he ends up getting hurt and then sick, and she helps him get better and kind of is very in intimate quarters with him because she's in his room helping him, sees him shirtless, and she's intrigued, and he actually has had a crush on her too, and it's really, really cute. There's a little bit of miscommunication about why he's interested in her, and I'm really interested in her brother's book because her brother isn't around because he was in a duel and got like banished, so I'm excited for his book. That's the next one, but I really loved the family dynamics, how they felt very hurt because her brother can't be around anymore, and he is kind of like the surrogate big brother, but he is into her. So not really. I really like this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The romance was very sweet. It was just a really great historical romance. And the last book I read is a new favorite of all time, and that is Always Only You by Chloe Leese. This one is a hockey romance, and our main heroine is on the autism spectrum, and she also has arthritis, and she's I think 26 or 28, and so she has to use a cane, and she's a social media coordinator for the hockey team, and I think it's Ren is our hero, and he is fabulous. He is such a cinnamon roll, and she's more of the grumpy heroine, so the roles are reversed from what we're normally used to with like the grumpy hero and the sunshine heroine. It's reversed, and he has had a thing for her since they met, but it's been 3 years, and he really doesn't want to have a relationship because he knows it's forbidden and it's something that can't happen because they work together, but they end up spending more time together. She has to stay over at his house for a reason, and she really doesn't like feeling like a burden to anybody or babied by anybody. She wants to be seen as independent, and she's had a bad relationship in the past where they couldn't handle what she has in her life, and so I really loved how he was just so honest about everything and open communication and willing to put her first and help her, and she is on the autism spectrum, and so he has to just be blunt and upfront with what he says because she doesn't get those kind of insinuations or when people say things but mean something else. She just doesn't get it, and he gets that, so he just is upfront with everything, which I absolutely adored. I love their romance. It's pretty slow, but it's so good. This is a new favorite of like all time for me, so I'm so happy I read it, and I read it literally the day after filming my favorite romances of 2020. That's what I get for reading until the end of the year and not waiting until the end of the year to film my favorites, but I loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. I highly recommend checking out Chloe Leese. I have an arc of her next book, and I cannot wait. And that is my December wrap up. Let me know down below what you've read in December, or if you've read any of these, what your thoughts are. I would love to hear. As always, thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.